In this first video, we're going to take a look at fader modes on the Stadium Series consoles. This is exactly the same on the MQ500M, MQ250M like I've got here, and our Stadium Connect as well. So let's take a look at these faders. At the moment, I've got these set up as regular playbacks. I'm going to go into my setup window on the console, and I go to view settings, and if I was starting a new show, I'll just go to the playback tab here, and I'm going to change my fader mode to auto fader moves. And I'm also going to enable 2-page holdover if it's not enabled already. So this is playback holdover mode just here. I'm going to change that to 2-page holdover. Now, when you're in 2-page holdover, you can run a playback on a fader like so. You can change to the next page, and you can then activate the item underneath at a different level. So I'm just going to push up those 3 playbacks there. I'm going to change back to the previous page, and you can see my faders jump between those levels. Now, that's just running my playbacks as regular playbacks. Let's shift release and clear those off. We have fader modes on our Stadium Series consoles. So if you come over to the next and previous page buttons for your faders, and you press and hold either next or previous page, you'll see on screen you now get a pop-up for fader mode. And the default is of course playbacks, but the Stadium Series console feature many different fader modes. We're going to run through some of those and show you how they can be used for your show. So, of course, playback's fairly self-explanatory. When you're in playback mode, your playbacks work exactly as you used to with any MagicQ console. You've got these new modes added. Let's jump into the first one, intensities. In the first mode, intensities, you'll first off notice that your backlit LEDs have changed from the regular default blue, which of course you can customize, to a white color. And now you've got all of your heads laid out across your faders. Now, you're going to say on this one, I've only got 10 faders, so you see heads 1 to 10. Now, if you use the next and previous page buttons, you jump up, heads 11 to 20, 21 to 30, etc. And of course, it will account if there's gaps there. So you can see on my show, I don't have a head 25. I then jump up to head 101, exactly as you can see on my faders here. Now, the faders are now controlling intensity in the programmer. So I can push faders up like so. And this is real time, bringing on those fixtures in my visualizer, as you can see here. And you can see I'm now riding those levels using my faders. This is putting the values in my programmer. If I open up my programmer window in the levels view, you can see the values in the programmer. I can go on and record that into cues and playbacks, and I can come and jump out back to playbacks mode, and I could go and record that onto one of my playbacks. If I go back to intensities again and clear my programmer, you'll see those values jump down again. So that's one of the fader modes. Another mode you've got is groups mode. Every group that you record in MagicQ now can appear on these faders, and you'll notice the default color is yellow when you're in groups mode. So I've got group 1 as my master spot group here, and again that's going to bring on all of my spot fixtures in my visualizer, as you can see here. Got a group for my Mac 2Ks, group for my Chauvet spots, and a group for my LEDs and my blinders as well. Again, this is putting things live into my programmer. So as I set levels on here, open up my programmer window, you can see those various levels in my programmer window for those fixtures as I bring the faders up and down. Again, when I hit my clear button, the faders will jump to 0, programmer's cleared. So again, you can use that for very quickly selecting fixtures and putting them into your programmer. Let's look at another fader mode. You've got channels view. So rather than talking about heads, we can look at channels. You've got selective intensity mode. Selective intensity mode is very useful if you don't want to have to step through and find your head number. You can select them from the keypad, selected heads mode. So I could go fixture 101 through 110 at, and it's now selected those, and I've got those on my faders. You can see I've selected them in my visualizer, and I can go and grab, say, 3 of those fixtures, put them on at full, exactly as you can see now in my visualizer. You can see I've only moved the faders for 3 fixtures, but they're all selected. They've got the red halo on the 10 fixtures I typed in. Just got the selected ones on my faders again, putting things live in the programmer, so I can hit the clear button and clear those off as well. Next previous page, you've got selective channel view. Works in the same concept. You can now choose channels. And now we come onto this masters section. You've got 3 masters modes. Now, if you've ever come across intensity masters in MagicQ before, you're probably used to how you have to manually record an intensity master, or a group master as we might call it, an inhibit type master. On the Stadium series, every fixture patched automatically now has a group master or an intensity master associated with it. And you'll notice when I go into this mode here, I've chosen intensity masters mode. My fader backlights have turned red. and my faders are sitting at 50%. So it sets my intensity masters to be defaulting at 100% in the middle and allows me to then adjust up and above on intensities. Again, it's laid out in head number order, so you can step through individual heads and you can see all of your heads have an individual intensity master. Now this is great if you're programming a show and maybe pre-programmed the show, and let's say you programmed it during the day and you wanted to give everything full intensity, and then you run your show and it's an evening show and you suddenly find everything's a bit washed out, too bright. Well, you can come in here and use your intensity masters to reduce intensities. And the opposite way around, you can use that to boost intensities. Rather than having to update hundreds of cues, you can just globally increase or decrease a fixture in all of its cues by a particular percentage. So here I could say, here are my 4 light blinders here. I no longer want to run them in normal mode. I want to pull them back and reduce these 5 here by 25%, say. Pull those back using the faders there. Again, if you've used these masters, to default them, just press the pause button and that'll put your masters back to default again. Looking at another fader mode, you've got regular group master mode, and this means every group you've recorded on the console turns itself into a group master as well. Now let's show you how that works again. If I go back to regular playbacks mode and I run up playback number 1, you can see on come my spots. I'm just going to pause it there. If I now go into group masters mode, my first fader is for my spots, which you can see in red in the visualizer. If I want to increase the value in the queue, so in the queue I recorded those fixtures at 70%, I can increase the value up. So for my daytime show, I want maximum intensity. If I want to reduce down, let's say it's the evening show, I can use that intensity master to bring those fixtures down in the queue. I could go back to playbacks mode again, and then I can step forward to the next queue, keep that stack going, and you'll see those fixtures will now maintain that intensity throughout that queue stack. So even though I might have programmed different intensities, they'll use that intensity master value to decrease by that percentage through all of my queues now. Again, if I go back to group masters, I can hit the pause key and default back that intensity master. Now if I go to selective intensity masters mode, now allows me to choose individual fixtures, so I could say heads 1 through 10 and have those selected heads on my faders. So I'm still looking at the individual heads intensity master, but I'm now choosing which ones I see. I've picked heads 1 through 10. If I bring them down to say 25% there, and then I go back and I go to intensity masters mode, you can see these are different to your normal intensity masters that you're selective. So you've got 2 types of intensity masters, and of course you can combine those together and use them in tandem with each other. The final fader mode you've got is presets mode. And presets mode, if you've ever used your intensity window before, intensity window on the console, you have 3 views to the intensity window: view palettes, view programmer, view presets. View programmer, you're of course putting intensities in the programmer. When you hit your clear, they go off. Your presets view is an old school preset style desk inside the console. You can use it for situations where you might want to sometimes park fixtures. So turn on some lights on the back of the stage, like so, and you don't want them affected by your programmer or your grandmaster. So it works like an old school preset style desk inside the console, independent of the rest of your programming. So you can put those on there and know that the light behind the stage is going to stay on even if you shift release or bring a grandmaster down. Now you've got another fader mode to allow you to access your presets on your faders directly. So I can go into presets mode, and now I can unfold my presets and have them directly on my faders. So I'm going to step back to page 1 there, and you can see the 3 that I put on in my preset window I've now got on my screen there, and I can have access to my presets via my motorized faders via their own mode. Now what about all these different modes and quickly jumping between the modes? If you open up your execute window on the console, you can store in an execute button the state of your faders. All you do is simply cursor over to an empty box, hit assign special, and then choose fader function. That will store the fader's current state to an execute button for you to quickly jump between them. If I go back to say playbacks mode, select another empty box, assign special, fader function has now stored the current state, so I've got buttons to quickly jump my motorized faders between the different states I recorded. So that's fader modes of your Stadium console. In our next video, we're going to look at how fader banks work on the Stadium series.